Hello and welcome to my podcast. Do me a favor, subscribe to the John Keim Report wherever you get your podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. You can find us there as part of Ampire Media, Ampire. Always much appreciated when you tune in. Don't forget you can read my work on ESPN.com, and the John Keim Report is presented by AAA. In a minute, I'll be joined by Washington Commanders analyst London Fletcher. I wanted to talk to him about like handling situations like McLaurin's in the locker room. Like, what do guys do? How do you not so much you just how you handle it. Like, do you address it? What do you do? And then also, what's he looking for in the second preseason game against the Bengals? And also just on the defense, what he'd be looking for to challenge Jaden Daniels as a defensive guy who had studied him, things like that. Like, so we'll get into all that and just again a lot on the defense and just a few things. So stay tuned for that conversation. Before I get there, just a couple of things. I wanted to just kind of go over a couple of things before just leading into the second preseason game. Just a couple of things I'm looking for. One, the starters will play, and that, of course, not Von Miller, not Wagner, not Tunsil, not Zach Ertz. Those guys will be sitting out. Jaden Daniels will play. How much they play, don't know yet. I'm gonna guess it's just a couple series, right? So maybe two, well, maybe two series, and I think it depends on how they're looking. So if Daniels and the offense go out there and look great on the first drive, it's a nice long drive, and you end up scoring. Maybe they probably don't need to go back out. So I think it'll just depend on how that first series goes. If it goes 3-and-out, then maybe you want to do more, right? So because they clearly need some work. So that's one thing. Defensively, I think it'd be about the same. How does that first series go? And I think then we'll see. Also, a couple things I'm looking for is O-line depth. Like one of the bigger concerns for me coming out of this camp right now is the offensive line. Not because I don't think I think they can be a good group. It's just that where's the cohesion at? Too many guys have been in and out. Laramie Tunsil's been in and out. He's been practicing. He will not play. He'll practice a little bit, then he'll sit out. You have Brandon Coleman hasn't practiced with the team since August 2nd. You have a starting right guard who is still rehabbing from his ACL, and you have a starting right tackle who is a rookie and who is improving, but he's still a rookie. So the only point in this is not that they can't be good. It's just when will they be good? But what's it going to look like right away? Because there's been a lot of ins and outs. And the number one way to build a strong line is through cohesion. So you can compensate and they can talk all that, but whenever you talk to guys about what makes a really good offensive line, it's that cohesiveness, right? And just getting to know guys and how they operate, how they handle certain situations without needing to talk. And where will this group be at early in the season with it? And so and I don't, like I said, I don't know when Cosme's coming back. Don't know when Coleman's coming back. We did see him out in the field the other day doing some rehab work with the trainers. So, we'll just have to monitor that situation. Also on Monday, I'm curious to see Trey Amos against Jamar Chase, T. Higgins. How does he fare against them? And I think I told you the other day, guys like Marshawn Lattimore, they're going to look at the preseason different. Like this is his thing. He just needs to get ready, right? Though this is not necessarily his measuring stick because it's preseason. He knows his key for him is durability and how he does during the season. For Amos, first big matchup, right, in a game. So let's see what happens. I think it's a great opportunity for him. And I'm looking at guys, some of the backup guys, obviously Bill Krosky Merritt. How does he perform? Chris Rodriguez did a nice job last week. Then what does the first offensive group do with Brian Robinson, Ben Sinnott? What does he look like? I think I pointed out some. I think his blocking's been pretty solid, but will he be a threat in the pass game at all? Luke McCaffrey, same thing. So I think the wide receiver group in general is something to watch because in once McLaurin is back on the field, then you have your number one guy, and you have another guy with Deebo Samuel who can obviously be very good. A definite developing connection between he and Jane Daniels. Noah Brown, once he gets out there, but we haven't seen him either. I've seen him at the facility, but I haven't seen him until he's practicing. We don't know what it's going to look like for him or when he'll be back. But when he is, then you have three pretty good options there. But you need to develop more. So how does that look like with Jalen Lane, KJ Osborne, Gallup, Ja'Cory Brooks, those guys, right? So Chris Moore, what do they look like tomorrow night or Monday night? So just wanted to see one of those guys maybe start to emerge a little bit, not just for, being a nice preseason story, but for being a guy who can really threaten a roster spot against NFL starters. So we'll see how that goes. And I think for, again, going back to the offensive line, one spot I'd be watching is Chris Paul. If he ends up starting at left guard with Andrew Wiley at left tackle, how does he fare? I think he had a pretty solid preseason opener. I think between he and Julian Good-Jones, I think that's a little battle there. And then Michael Dieter, the backup center. We saw what he did last year during the season. And to be honest, I'm not sure that it was good enough. So how does he look, and how do those other two look? Because I don't know that they can have a backup center amongst whether it's Julian Good-Jones or Nick Allegretti as well. So, I don't know if they would keep Dieter on the roster. We'll see. So all those decisions are coming up a week from, I think it's a week from Tuesday. So anyway, folks, that's all I wanted to go over. And also, I know one other thing, I saw that the Bengals had, said that they're now again looking at, exploring trade options for Trey Hendrickson. One thing to note, and I know it's going to get asked a lot, I don't believe there was much interest from this team during that first time because of the capital it would cost to get him. And, when you're trying to pay, if you want to pay Terry McLaurin, you're not going to go trade for Trey Hendrickson and pay that amount as well. So but anyways, we'll see what happens. Like but I do know the first time around, and I don't know that anything has changed as far as the thinking goes, why they didn't pursue the first time. I don't know that anything's changed as to why they would then go do it now. So, but anyway, we'll monitor all that and monitor the McLaurin contract extension possibilities. Again, yesterday was not necessarily should not necessarily be viewed as a step in the direction or with anything with the contract talks. This is a step from a physical standpoint. So anyways, that's it for me. Here's my conversation with Washington Commanders analyst London Fletcher. All right, London. So always good to see you. Good to have you on. We'll talk about a few things that related to the Commanders, some big news, etc. But also, you are doing some work with AAA, so I want to start there. Let people know what you're doing.
Yeah, no, I'm glad we're going to start there. So AAA, they partnered with the Commanders to develop a great new product. It's called the AAA Commanders MVP membership. And now, in addition to that trusted value and the peace of mind you get from having a AAA membership, Commanders fans who join will now have access to a lot of great team perks. And some of those great team perks is a digital Commanders branded AAA membership card, which is pretty cool. You can get 15% off purchases at the official Commanders team online shop and entries into regular drawings for game tickets and other VIP fan experiences, which might even include yours truly. If
Wow.
you if you're interested in becoming a AAA Commanders MVP member, you can go to AAA.com/Commanders. Now, I know a lot of people may, like myself, I already have a AAA membership. Current members, you can look to upgrade your membership to the MVP membership by going, and it's free by upgrading for free at AAA.com/Commanders. And again, new members who are looking to join, go to AAA.com/Commanders and become a AAA Commanders MVP member.
AAA has saved me a couple times. I will say that. So,
Oh, me too. Well, my children, especially more recently, my kids are both driving now, and my oldest, she caught a flat tire out on the road and told her to call AAA. And then my son, he was driving on the highway going to a workout, and he caught a flat tire. And as you know how scary that is to be on the highway catching flights.
yes.
So we pulled over, sent them the AAA information. They came out there and took care of him. So you talk about trusted value and that peace of mind of having a AAA membership, and then also now becoming a Commanders, a AAA Commanders MVP membership. So you can't beat that.
No, for you or your kids too. So, but speaking of like insurance and stuff, I guess the insurance for the Washington is that Terry McLaurin, right? Like he's their
Yeah.
offensive insurance. And I guess that's not insurance, but he's the guy that can go in there and help them, right? So, off the PUP list, I'm curious from your perspective in the locker room as a leader, how would you handle situations like this? Did you ever encounter anything like this? And how, in the locker room, how would you handle that to make sure that it doesn't become something you don't want it to be?
Yeah, no, playing 15 years in the National Football League, contract situations will occur with teammates and things like that. But it's kind of a general rule. You don't get involved in other people's contract
Right.
situations, and you want to be supportive of your teammates, but understand that's business. You try to support him in any way, shape, or form that you can, but you don't get involved with that. And we focus on what we can focus on, and which is coming in trying to become the best player, best team that we can become each and every day, and then let Terry handle his situation the way he needs to handle his situation.
Does it change at all when the season starts?
Usually a lot of times I go back to when I was in St. Louis, you know, there were guys that went into the seasons still trying to get contract negotiations done. A lot of times you want to get those things
Right.
handled prior to the season, but it doesn't change. Guys are professionals. They're going to go out and do
Right.
their job and play the way they need to play. So it does not change during the course of the season because guys are going to go out and play the best that they can play the best that they can play.
And because if he doesn't, then it can impact and it impacts him, right? And you don't want it to impact winning or losing as a team, but I'd imagine you know enough about Terry to
Yeah, no,
he's
he's
gonna
he's not going he's not going to let this situation, regardless of how it plays out, to affect or impact him as a player or the locker room or the team or anything like that. He's been too stand up type of individual to let that impact the locker room or the team or him personally.
and it could also maybe fuel him in a different way too. And
Yeah,
you never know.
absolutely,
And I guess we'll have
absolutely.
to see how it plays out. But I am curious too for you. This team building off a 12-5 season, and we all know what happened last year, magical year, and all that. You went through this in St. Louis, where you go from what 4 wins to 12 Super Bowl, right?
Yeah,
How do
yeah,
you sustain that? How do you make sure? Because you guys were able to sustain it for a couple of years. How do you make sure you sustain that?
yeah. It takes. We just talked about locker room, and it's besides having the right leaders in your locker room, it has to the tone and the tenor of the organization is set by the head coach. And one of the things is it's easy to climb that mountaintop, but once you get there, are you going to become complacent? Will you feel like you've arrived? Will you feel like, hey, we're good enough to just roll our helmet out there? And you have to understand the NFL is ever evolving, ever changing. What you did last season doesn't automatically carry over into the next season. You mentioned St. Louis. We won the Super Bowl. The next year, we go from the hunters to being the hunted. We were everybody's Super Bowl, so to speak, regardless of what that team's record was the previous year or at what their current record was when we played them, how they looked on paper. We got everybody's best. And I know Washington didn't win the Super Bowl last year, but they made it to the NFC Championship game. And they're viewed as one of the upper echelon teams now. They're viewed as a team that can represent the NFC in the Super Bowl. So teams are going to be gunning to knock them off. They'll have a bullseye on their back. So they have to understand you're not going to sneak up on anybody. You're going to get everybody's best shot. I think Dan Quinn has done a great job of kind of keeping that perspective and saying, hey, guys, what we accomplished last year, that's in the past. We have to look to be a better team than what we were a year ago. And that's developed in the meeting rooms, on the practice field, and it's developed daily. I love the competitive atmosphere and culture that they constantly emphasize on a daily basis, and that's what's going to keep them striving to be their best and not be complacent and rest on what they were able to accomplish last season.
So could you tell a difference when teams played you the next year that it was
Oh,
that
oh
was
yeah,
different for them?
absolutely,
How so?
absolutely. Because I mean, we can be playing. Let's say it's week 12 of a season, and I think that next year we I can't remember exactly what we were from a standpoint. Now we brought back the same team and we ended up going 10-6.
Right.
Had to win our last game to get into the playoffs, but early in that season, or not even early in the season, teams that you would think aren't very good or kind of out of it, this wasn't the team that we saw on film when we
Right.
were prepping for that team. Like they didn't play as hard. They weren't clicking on all cylinders, so to speak. We got every team's best. that season.
Wow.
And there is a difference between when you're trying to. That's why you don't see a lot of back-to-back Super Bowl champions
Yeah.
and obviously three-peats because it's just so hard because every team you face on your schedule, they're giving you your best shot.
When you're around the team this year, whether in the building, around Quinn or whatever, what is it that you saw that that led you to believe like, hey, they understand what it's going to be like?
I'll say this: from the very first moment that I met Dan Quinn, you can tell he was just a genuine person, and first and foremost, and that goes a long way when you're dealing with people. Just being that genuine mindset, genuine person that he is. He embraced me like I had played for him, and he did that with all the former players. And then just the constant emphasis on competition and hey, we're gonna do these things the right way, and we're gonna really build this brotherhood. So it wasn't fake because you can just sense a different energy in the building. You're around there. You've been around there every
Yeah,
day,
yeah,
covering this team for I don't know, almost 30
long
years,
time,
a long
long
time.
time.
So and you can feel, hey, when you got something good and just the makings of something great, and that brotherhood and that camaraderie and that togetherness is palpable. And I even last year, I didn't know how many games they would win, but I knew they would be more competitive
Right.
because of that mindset. And they would also put a product that fans could be proud of, fans and former players, alumni.
So and yeah, and you definitely could feel it for sure. And I'm curious, though, like last week, the first preseason game, I know the starters didn't play. Dan Quinn was not happy about how the others looked. From your perspective, as a former player, as a broadcaster, what was your takeaway? And yes, the starters didn't play, it was sloppy. So what did it mean to you?
I was very surprised that they played as poorly as they played. I was anticipating them, regardless of 30 players not playing on for Washington and for us, um, I still expected us to go out and play, be more competitive, and just not have those type of penalties. And just
Right.
he mentioned sloppy, just didn't look like the type of team that we had grown accustomed to seeing. There was definitely you can tell that New England, Mike Vrabel, he's a first year head coach there trying to establish his culture and they took it to a different level. You can tell
Right.
they put more emphasis on hey going out and trying to win this ball game, and they probably game plan more, put a lot more prep into Washington, into us, and getting ready for that game. And that's not saying we didn't take it seriously, but you can tell that New England, in my opinion, felt like they put more emphasis in their practices, preparation, and really knowing what our strengths and weaknesses are, knowing the opponent, things like that. That where Washington players seem like to be still in kind of a training camp mode, and so I took that also into consideration, but I think it was the penalties that
Yeah.
disappointed me the most, and obviously the special teams play. But I'm sure those guys. I look at this as great teaching moments, great teaching opportunities. I'm sure Larry Izzo, the special teams coach, used those opportunities to really hone in and coach and teach guys, and then and the coaches at all the different positions use that game to really emphasize teach and coach the this past week.
Is there anybody you're looking forward to seeing Monday night? Because they're going to play. The starters are going to play, except for a handful of guys, Bobby, Vaughn, those kind of guys. Will not. Zach Ertz won't play. Who are you looking forward to seeing Monday night?
Yeah, obviously this is preseason game. We'll get to see Jaden in this ball game. Um, Now he won't have his full complement of projected offensive line starters, and we know Terry won't be on the football field, and Noah Brown, but continuing to see him in a preseason game, live preseason game. But as far as the receivers, see if some of those guys continue to develop, like a Ja'Cory Brooks. He had a really good game against the Patriots. Can he build upon that? Who's gonna emerge as a whether it's a third, fourth, fifth receiver? Jalen Lane. See him develop on the defensive side. Some of the see a Trey Amos against
Yeah.
a receivers that the Bengals have.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming that the Bengals will play their guys again, especially considering that they played them in the first preseason game. So see some of our secondary players go against that high powered passing attack of the Cincinnati Bengals.
How much can you draw from preseason? Like, and the other thing is like it's so different anymore, London, how teams practice that and losing that joint practice, I think, against the Ravens is a big deal. But how much can you draw from the preseason? What is like when you get to a veteran status, like what is it that you need to get ready? What's the biggest thing?
I mean, I think for it's you mentioned. I'm glad you mentioned veteran because it's a little bit different from
Right.
a veteran prepping and preparing for a regular season as opposed to a guy trying to make a ball club. You definitely want to go out and perform at a high level anytime you take the football field. But from a veteran standpoint, you want to just work on your time and work on your footwork, your stance, the fundamentals of the game, work on your conditioning. That's a part of it. Being in the game situation, going through your routine of getting ready for a game and all the different things that you need to do to prepare for a football game. You want to be crisp, getting your calls, working together as a unit. There's this defense. I'll just use that for example. There's a lot of new faces on the defense, whether it's on the defensive line or in the secondary. So just getting that communication, those are any rep you can get, especially game reps, it aids and benefits you for playing the real game. So from a veteran standpoint, those are things you want to kind of use the preseason for. From whether it's a rookie, young guy, first, second year guy, or guys who are trying to make a roster, obviously the anxiety is a little bit different. You want to go out and play well. I mean, because you need to take advantage of whatever opportunities you get, and every rep counts.
What as a defensive guy, how would you have approached scouting a guy like Jaden Daniels in the offseason? Would you have done that? Would you just leave it up to the coordinators? Like what would you have looked for in a quarterback's game to see like where can I take advantage or what can we do? Like what would you have looked at?
Yeah, so if we had Washington on our schedule the first game of the season, I would spend as much time as possible trying to get some tendencies, and it's not just from Jaden, but just in the offense in general. Hey, what were some of the things that whether it's from a formation standpoint, personnel, what are some of the things that his strengths, his weaknesses, things like that, tendencies, which all the teams, probably definitely the teams that play Washington the first 4 weeks of the season, they spend a ton of time trying to analyze Jaden and his offense. And so that's kind of how you would approach that. The personnel, especially the carryover personnel groupings, group or players, I should say, getting a good study on those guys and offensive line, stuff like that. You would study those types of things.
When people talk about, and I don't like to use this word, the phrase sophomore slump. So maybe just year two building off what he had as a rookie. What is it? Where do you look at his games like this is why? I mean, we all know he's good, right? We had a great year. But what are some of the things that maybe from a defensive standpoint that you saw that says like it's going to be really hard for teams to always slow him because of this? Is there anything
I'll
that
say
what
this,
jumped
and
out to you?
I see, I've seen some of the stuff about different commentators, analysts, however you want to call it, saying, "Hey, Jaden could have a sophomore slump." I disagree. I don't think he will because of just being around him, watching him work and his mindset and his approach to the game, and he doesn't seem satisfied. The humility is just one thing that stands out for me. He hasn't all the success that he had coming in from LSU rookie season, being offensive rookie of the year. It hasn't seemed to inflate his ego. He just seems like he's just so grounded. And that's a credit to his parents, credit to him, and the way he just like goes about his business. And I've been around a lot of a lot of young guys who've had success early, and it's gone to their heads, and the air has come out of the cell very quickly. But with Jaden, he just doesn't have that mindset, and he's constantly trying to work to get better. And that's why it's going to be tough for somebody to say pinpoint, say, hey, we do this, we'll really be able to stifle him. They're going to involve his offense. They're going to put more on his plate.
Yeah.
He's going to have more things that in his toolbox that he can utilize, and I think he's going to be even better as a quarterback this season.
I agree with everything you said about him. And the other thing is, the person who studied more of his tendencies than anybody was himself, and I think that says a lot
Yeah.
too. Couple more minutes. That's it. The defense. What do you think is the key there? And like I look at that secondary and the coverage ability, it's going to open up things up front. But what do you see as the key for this defense? What are you thinking about the D?
First of all, first and foremost, got to be able to stop the run. That's number one. And they know that. That's why they went out and signed the players that they signed along the defensive front, especially in the interior, getting bigger, bringing in a Ken Law, bringing in Eddie Goldman, even like a Dietrich Wise, a bigger defensive end. You have to earn the right to be able to rush the passer. If you can't stop the run, which was really, if you looked at this defense, that was the Achilles heel all season long. Even though they won 12 games, it really showed his reared his ugly head in the games against the Philadelphia Eagles. And you got Saquon Barkley and those Eagles in that rushing attack. You have to be able to stop the run a lot better, because when you stop the run, now you earn the right to be able to rush the passer. You get teams into more 3rd and 5+ situations where, if you want to dial up pressure, if you want to, get after the quarterback. It's hard to rush the quarterback on 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3.
Yeah.
It's not, you're not going to get a ton of sacks in those downs of distance. And Joe Witt Jr., we've talked to him a lot. You guys interview him all the time. Talked about being able to play more his style of defense, having, the types of players along the front end, on the back end. So I'm excited to see what those guys do. But it starts, for me, it starts with being able to stop the run.
And along those lines, not only do they get bigger with their run stoppers, but they can put out a line, London. If it's like 3rd and 4, you can have a group that is a bigger pass rushing group. So if they do run the ball, you're not getting blown off. Do you know what I mean? Like, because I've seen
Yeah, no, absolutely. And some teams at 3rd and 4, 3rd and 3, those are downs and distances where teams could still run the ball, whether it's draw, whatever the case may be. So just being able to still put some guys out there that can rush the passer and still stop the run. So, no, you make a great point there.
Last one. How nice is it for you, a guy who played a long time, to see guys like Bobby, Von Miller, Zach Ertz, like doing what they do? Because I'm sure you have a different level of appreciation watching those guys. And what do you expect?
I do it. I expect him to play well. I was, obviously, Bobby, he and I have a relationship, and I knew what he would bring to the table from a leadership standpoint, and even a playmaking and production standpoint. And he's still playing at a high level. But I was when I looked at the tape of Von after we signed him, I didn't know what I was going to see. Like, does he still really have juice? And I popped the film on. I was like, man, he still has an explosive first step. He still puts a lot of pressure on offensive tackles with his speed. He has some moves that whether it's that long arm that he's perfected, and then also his dip move. So he's still going to bring that juice as a pass rusher, and he's also going to help and aid the other guys, whether it's a Frankie Louvu, uh, a Dorrance Armstrong, all the other guys with his knowledge and being able to help them understand how to rush the quarterback. So those guys will benefit from having Von as well.
Absolutely.
And
London,
Zach, I mean, and Zach Ertz. Heck, I remember playing against Zach, and he's still out there. He looks even better this season. And I don't know if it was just a different training or if he was coming off the injury a year ago, and now he's had an opportunity to really rehabbing and training is totally different.
Yeah.
For him, he wasn't injured going into this offseason. So he looks a lot more explosive and even more elusive. So I expect a big season out of him as well.
One coach told me his footwork is probably the best it's ever been.
Yeah, and we interviewed Zach on the broadcast last week against the Patriots, and I asked him about that, and did he change anything or what was it? And he said he's learned to he still works hard, but he's working smarter too. He's working more on his footwork, his speed, his explosive type training. He's not just always. It's not always about the volume.
Right.
It's about making sure he's being more efficient in his training.
He looks good. London, I appreciate it. I kept you a few minutes longer than I thought I would, and I said I would, so I really appreciate the extra 5-6 minutes. Thank you very much for joining me.
It's all good, man. Thank you.
That's it for this episode. Thanks to London for joining me, and thank you, as always, for tuning in. I will be back after the game Monday night with a wrap-up, so I'll talk to you next time.